Let's see. I heard someone. Oh, hi, Pam. I thought you were doing professor training this morning. Hey, Paul.
That finished up last week.
Ah,
Yeah.
did he graduate?
Yeah, he's ready for advanced.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. He looks highly educated.
Yes.
Yeah, so educated.
Educated or agitated?
Educated, actually. He's
His tail.
yeah, there's his tail.
Fixing RV.
So he's a lot more calm around people. That's what our goal is. Calm around other people and dogs.
Yeah. He's used to Zoom, though. He doesn't bark at people on Zoom.
Uh,
Morning, Jim.
I noticed that
Hi, Sue.
Dick has a different background there. Dick, are you
he's
out
in
of
his
town?
RV. In the RV.
I'm down in New Mexico with my RV.
Where in New Mexico are you?
Just around Las Vegas, 27 miles northwest of Las Vegas,
Yeah.
up in the mountains up there.
Is that on the road to Taos?
Kind of, sort of. It depends upon how you go.
Yeah. But you can
It's
get
up
there.
on
from-
Rosiata.
You're not on a reservation then.
No,
John and Becky are testing out their microphone, and they want to see if we can hear them. So say something, John and Becky.
Can you guys hear us now?
Yes.
Yay!
Been working on it all weekend since Friday and finally figured out what the problem was.
Excellent.
If you could turn the volume up a little, it'd be good, but we can hear you.
Okay.
So that's good.
How's that? Is that better?
Yep.
Yeah.
So now you're certified Zoomers.
All right. We get a plaque for that?
God, we forgot to hang the certificate up, honey.
Oh, yeah.
Take my
Well,
position.
Sandy is with me here. She's got a runny nose at this point, so she's gonna.
I snuffed up a bug, I think.
I think she said she snuffed up a bug, so not the flying kind, not the irritating kind.
That's
It
what
might be
happens
stuck
when
in her nose.
Uh,
Oh no!
Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, if you would do the honors. And if you have your personal candle nearby, please join us in our lighting.
Wasn't there? We light this candle in recognition of and appreciation for the Christ light within each of us and the presence of the divine in our gathering.
Well, thank you. Let's go to some announcements here. Tomorrow at 6 o'clock, real estate team meeting. We'll be reviewing what's happening in terms of activity on the property. Tomorrow night, discussion, as every Monday night. Every Wednesday evening, we have a prayer circle and meditation. And Friday evening, we have a TGIF. Thank God it's fellowship. And it says there's a link on our to our online donation platform available in the chat box. No, it's not. I forgot to get that up this morning. So Maestro, if you would, I will mute everyone, and if you could unmute yourself.
There, can you hear me now?
Can hear you now. Love is flowing like a river, flowing out from you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives Peace is flowing like a river, flowing out from you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. Joy is flowing like a river, flowing out from you and me, flowing out into the desert, setting all the captives free. And if you would join me for our affirmation of living water unity, you may mute or unmute yourself as you choose. Together, please. Living Water Unity is a thriving spiritual community inspired to embrace our abundant good now. I am empowered for joyful living by expressing God in each moment. And if someone would like to read our daily word this morning, just step right in there and do it.
I will do it.
Good.
Today's word is divine order. Our affirmation is, divine order is always unfolding in my life and in the world. As spring ripens into summer each year, new leaves transform bare trees into canopies of green. Tiny seedlings grow into sturdy plants and decorate the landscape with an array of colorful blossoms. I marvel at the divine order demonstrated as the earth renews itself. I recognize that even as the earth appeared barren in wintertime, new life was preparing to spring forth. I notice this pattern in my life. I may be demonstrating visible growth in my life, or like the earth in winter, it may seem that my life is stagnant and barren. I remember that as the seasons of nature change, so do the seasons of my life. Even when it is not apparent to me, I know that divine order is always unfolding in my life and in the world. Our scripture is Mark chapter 4, verse 28. The earth produces of itself first the stalk, then the head, then the full grain in the head.
Thank you, Kay. And our affirming prayer. Now, as we share this affirming prayer, we will continue then with offered prayers, and any offered prayer that you would like to give. Remember that praying is about changing the consciousness of those involved in the prayed for situation, including you, the praying one. The most effective way to do that is to feel unconditional love and direct it to those that are involved. And as the rest of us hold the offered prayer in consciousness, our sending our experienced unconditional love to those involved will amplify the prayer. And the offered prayer will then finish with, and so it is, and another offered prayer will be provided. So, our affirming prayer is, we know that God is a love that has no end and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world in this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, and we affirm that all are safe, healthy, and protected. And we bless all those who support us in maintaining vibrant health. We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. And we bless our global family with radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. And so, if you would, offer your prayers now.
For our friend Rose working on the front lines, that she be completely safe and healthy.
And so it is. And in that light, prayers for Janine, who is working in retail, that she may be protected, safe, and healthy. And so it is.
Prayers for Unity on the River, my former Unity group back in Amesbury, Massachusetts. They just sold their entire property this week and got a very fair offer, and now move on to the next steps similar to what we're looking to do.
And so it is.
I want to say thank you to all of the people that we saw yesterday and the last 3 days with their masks on. We really appreciate that.
And so it is. I'd like to offer prayers for the demonstrators, the protesters, and for the police as they face off in their respective communities, that the protestations may be heard and that the conflict be minimal.
So it is.
And so it is.
I would like to add to that all of us really engage in this movement and try to understand what's behind it and understand the history of our country and how we've led to this time and how much more work we have to do.
Mm-hmm. 5,000.
And so it is.
The whole backyard.
I would like to give a prayer that our property will be uplifted and put in a better light or a more powerful light. We can take care of what we need to do with it over this coming week.
And so it is.
I want to thank everyone for your prayers for my surgery. I'm home now, and I think and I know that the prayers have helped, so thank you.
And so it is.
I'd like to ask for prayers for Paul and me. We are traveling this week, and we plan to be entirely safe as we visit my dad for his birthday.
And so it is. I'd like to offer prayers for all of those who are experiencing great angst in this time. We are witnessing truly a remarkable time in history, but there are a lot of people in pain. There are a lot of people suffering economically, suffering from societal what's the word that I'm looking for? Suffering from a rejection of their worth. I'd like to offer prayers for all of those that are experiencing this turmoil and taking it very personally, as indeed we all are in that boat. And so it is.
Three prayers for some people I know with health issues, with Suzette's, my friend Suzette's brother has Lou Gehrig's disease, ALCS, just diagnosed. My friend Sheila's father had a bad fall, is in the intensive care with brain issues. And the friend Georgia, who has to have a rotator cuff surgery coming up. So for all those health issues and people who have health issues, including COVID and other health issues that we face, that people face, and that were surprises to them, and I just hope, give out hopes and prayers that they will be able to overcome these illnesses, and their surgeries and care will be successful. They will be healthy again.
And so it is. And so as we join in this prayer time, offering our unconditional love to all of those for whom we have prayed, to see them lifted and transformed by the realization of love in their life, by the acceptance of the realization that we are indeed in this together. In this we give thanks. So it is that together we say Amen.
Amen.
Well, I'd like to begin by offering a music from Nemo Patel and Daniel Namad. We heard from them a couple of weeks ago, and I almost selected the music that we had several weeks ago, but we'll do something different here this morning. And so let me select here our first piece.
Been a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. That the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in. We plant the seeds then, and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planted planting seeds, nothing
It's like your whole life you've been training for this moment, and when the time comes you just disown it, meaning you just surrender, don't control it, not interested in the clay pots and mold it, or sitting next to the path trying to unfold it, or waiting for the fruits to fall down toward you. Let it go and now you're flowing, feeling quite gorgeous, so you take steps away instead of towards it. What a rush, feeling freedom with nothing to hold. We've been taught that what you touch will always turn to gold, and now we're learning when we let it go it overflows with no credit to take, cause no credit is home. A higher power working deeper where the seeds are sowed, and when the seeds are true then they're seeds of gold. But the real gold is joy when life starts to flow, and when it does you just smile cause now you know. I spent a long time running, I never knew then what I know now. Let the fruits, they always come in, but you can't go around just knocking them down. It takes a long time to show in, we plant the seeds then and we look at them now. But the roots are always growing, no matter if I'm there or never around.
Whatever grows will grow, whatever dies will die, whatever works will work, whatever flies will fly, whatever fails will fail, what's meant to soar will soar. I am planting seeds, whatever grows will grow,
When it grows, it grows.
whatever dies will
And when it dies, it dies. Come on.
works will
If it works, it works.
whatever flies will
Let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will
When it
fail,
fails, it
what's meant
fails.
to soar will
And
soar.
when it soars, it soars.
I am planting seeds, whatever grows will
Let it
grow,
grow, let it
whatever
grow.
dies will
When it
die,
dies, it
whatever
dies.
works will
When it works, it works.
whatever flies
Yeah.
will
Let it fly, let it
whatever
fly.
fails will fail,
fails, it
what's meant
fails.
to soar will soar.
Let it
I am planting seeds
and nothing more. And nothing more.
You know, when you smile, you just help someone to know that you're cared about and that you love them.
All right. Let's make sure that doesn't come back on again. All right. So, that's Empty Hands Music. Daniel Namad and Nemo Patel. So we are all.
I can't hear you, David.
Yeah, thank you. we are all of us in this position where life is interesting, and we are each of us planting seeds. We're planting seeds with the thoughts we think. We are planting seeds with the words we say. We're planting seeds with the decisions we make. We're planting seeds with the acts that we perform. We are each planting seeds throughout the day, and it's important for us to be aware of that. What are we planting? Where are we headed? What are we nurturing to grow into our future? Our future for our children, our future for ourselves, our future for the generations that will follow us. And it's truly up to us. We are witnesses to a historical milestone. Our country is in the throes of great angst. The world is in turmoil. I mean, we see demonstrations that are happening in all of the free societies around the world. And that's good. That's good because it's demonstrating that there is truly an undergirding energy that is rising up to be asked for transformation. And so it is up to us to answer the call. We've got COVID-19 happening, and it's destroyed. It has substantially hampered our economies. And we have this racial disparity energy that is coming to the fro. We are certainly witnesses to this, but few of us are immune. I mean, there may be indeed some elevated individuals. I know that I am not one of those, but there may be some elevated individuals that are looking at this purely as the observer. And while that is truly a wonderful place for us to get to, it is not necessarily a place where we are now. So it's incumbent upon all of us to pay attention. White power has been discussed in these days. I mean, it's part of the society's conversation now. Certainly, many people have been aware of this white privilege. It's no one's fault. It is the result of society and its treatment of the various members of society over the past. So much to the extent that it has become an underlying assumption. I saw a post this last, I guess it was this last week, from a Facebook user, Debbie Halpin, and I'd like to share that entire post with you. It is somewhat lengthy, so please be patient with me as I go through it. But I'd like you to you to get the feeling of this person and see what she is going through. There is so she wrote this in the context of, this is my experience. And she began with, when I called the police to report a car accident and the police showed up against me, cursing at me, telling me to hurry up and share my side of the story because he had better things to do. When I was waiting for an elevator with my husband, he is white, I am black, and the guy inside took one look at us and said, "That doesn't belong together," walked out the elevator to take the stairs instead of riding down with us. When walking in the mall with my husband and a random white girl comes up to us and says, "I hope everything you love gets taken from you." When my 15-year-old sister calls my parents crying because a bunch of white parents searched her backpack after inviting her to their home for a get-together. When I was accused of stealing at Fairfield Ludlow High School and they sent police to search my locker, they even showed up with dogs, only to find the real person who did this thing the next day. It was embarrassing. When I showed up to babysit at a Westport home and had the cops called on me because the neighbors thought I was breaking in, the cops yelled and cursed at me in front of the white kids. That day I was sure I was going to die. When I moved to Fairfield, Connecticut, got pulled over a few blocks from my house, I was asked for my license and registration, but took too long to find registration because I was driving my mom's car, even though the car was registered and he could have looked it up. The cop handed me a ticket and a court date that was on the same day as my final exams. And when I told him I couldn't make it, his response was, "School's not going to matter with this on your record." Then he laughed and towed my car and had me take all the important things out, like my little sister's car seat, food, and had me walk home in the drenching rain. When I went to Lake Mohegan in Fairfield with my sisters, and a cop pulled us over, flashed lights in our eyes, and said, "Where are you guys from? BPT?" Not knowing we lived down the street. He told us, "Someone called the cops on you for loitering." which was a lie. The cops searched our cars and gave each of us a ticket with no proof. When the police showed up at my Fairfield home and arrested my father for having a small argument with my mom, my dad has never been in trouble, has a master's degree, and works hard. Yet despite my mother telling them everything was okay, they still proceeded to arrest him. Put his face on News 12 and labeled the story, "Fairfield Black Man Threatened to Kill His Wife Over Using Facebook Too Much." That night I went to bail my dad out. I showed up at the police station with money in my hand, and the cops laughed at me and said, "Your dad's a pig." When I spent half my life in the Bridgeport school system, then moved to Fairfield and started high school, I remember being so confused as to why Fairfield school systems offered iPads for studying, culinary, forensics, child development courses, career-driven classes, when Bridgeport, some of the schools are infested with mice and mold. The bulletin boards are barely hanging on the walls. When I have to step into a room full of white people and they are somehow surprised when I am a nurse and that I'm educated, don't think I didn't notice the change in conversation once I answered the "so what do you do?" question. When I was searching for a home with my husband in a white neighborhood, and he says, "I'm not worried about my safety, I'm worried about yours. We have to make sure our neighbors are accepting our interracial relationship." When I decided to go to work wearing natural hair for the first time, and my white manager told me that I needed to find a way to tame my hair. What would that be like? That's day to day. That's what people experience day to day. It rips at my heart that we're in the 21st century. Why does anyone have to go through that? So that's a black woman's experience. Now imagine the plight of a black man. On the one hand, feared, and on the other hand, devalued. While this is not a universal truth, there was a meme that was flying through Facebook this last week that said, "A black perpetrator is vilified for his past offenses. A white perpetrator is lauded for his future potential." We remember the Stanford student that was given probation for being convicted of raping a girl who was had too much alcohol or had a roofie or something, but she was non-responsive. And then we hear about Rayshak Brooks in Atlanta, who apparently was out celebrating with whomever on Friday night, realized he was too drunk to drive home, so he pulled into a Wendy's. The police were called. He resisted arrest. I mean, just reading through Debbie's experience, I can understand why he would feel justified in resisting arrest, but not to excuse his actions, but rather to point to the fact that he was killed because he was resisting arrest. Yeah, he apparently grabbed a stun gun. Yeah, he apparently ran. And yeah, he apparently turned and was holding the stun gun in a threatening manner. But his 8-year-old daughter was all dressed in her birthday clothes, ready to spend her Saturday with her dad. And he has 2 other children that will grow up without their father, never to see their father darken their door again. Yeah. Yeah, there's angst. There's angst in this country. So, what do we do about this? Each of us, in the thoughts we think, in the words we use, the decisions we make, the actions we perform, each of us is responsible for building a society that is just, that is equitable, that provides an opportunity for every one of us to thrive. So, last week we explored implicit and explicit biases. And perhaps you've had some thoughts about the state of our union this past week. How are you feeling about it? Are you pessimistic, optimistic, satisfied, outraged? Are you engaged with it? Do you feel you have a part to play? Or are you overwhelmed by the enormity of the challenge facing our nation, our world? So what are your thoughts? I open this for your contributions here.
I'm hopeful that we are seeing changes happening so quickly. On a timeline of when charges normally happen after such horrific incidents, things went more quickly, and the fact that there were protests all over the world and there are changes now happening in this country as far as laws, making it explicit how to treat people, how not, what's not acceptable. I'm hopeful because there have been so many of these cases before, and it looks like change is really happening. And what we can do, not accept biases and be as open as possible to everyone.
Thanks, Pam.
David, you've talked about how when there's a transition to a better way of life, there's a process that involves chaos. We'll pass through chaos before we get to the end of the tunnel where the light is. And it's my opinion that we are at the peak of that chaos, and things will get better. And another thing I want to say is there's some very human-like beings that live in Arcturus. Some of the Arcturians are color people. They're blue. So it's just insane to treat people bad based on their color, because these people are very well advanced and spiritual. But they're blue, they're colored.
I'd like to add to what you had to say about chaos. That bifurcation point is a point where actually 2 paths are possible. And one path is to a higher order society, to a higher order system that will absorb the energy that is obviously flowing into our society right now. But the other path is devolution. The other path is to chaos, and the amount of time that we would exist in chaos would be unknown. My niece offered a post that came in from some militia group in Seattle. She lives in Seattle. That was complaining about the occupation of a certain part of the city by the protesters. And the gist of the post was, we've got guns and we will free this territory that's being occupied by the rioters. Yeah, there's a lot of energy that's in the society, but we each play a part in how this is going to unfold. It could indeed slip into irredeemable, irretrievable chaos, or it could rise up. And seeing the amount of demonstrations that are happening all over the world, as you pointed out, Pam, that is testament to there is indeed forces that are moving us into a higher realization of who we are and what part we play in our respective societies. I open the floor back up for your contributions as to how are you engaged with this going on right now.
I want to add real quick that it's time to choose between that good path and the bad path.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
Definitely get clear about that and start taking action in that regard.
Anyone else?
I think the effort needs to be sustained. There is a lot going on right now, and it's difficult. Well, it is difficult because there's so many things going on in the world, and as so often happens, if it starts dying down a little in the news, we can have a tendency to just let it slide, but I think the effort really needs to be sustained until true change is enacted and becomes a reality. Ultimately, one of the things that we can do just easily, especially easily if you live in Colorado, be sure to vote, because that determines who will be making the decisions. And with all the incidences of voter suppression that have been going on for years, if there is any role we can play in assisting people in getting to polling sites, if they are in that position where all their polling places nearby have been closed, and if they can't vote by mail, if there's anything we can do to help them get there to vote, we should. In Colorado, we are fortunate because people can vote by mail, but many other places that is not the case. And we don't know, there's a big movement to try to keep that from happening for people and close their polling places. So.
And I'd like to underline that we each have a part to play. We cannot be sideline witnesses. We have to be engaged in this because, again, there are forces that are active in our society which would suppress and move us into a chaotic realm. We have to each be participating in this in whatever way that we choose to be, but we each have to be participating in this.
I'm a little uncertain what to do. I want to, but I'm not sure what the specific is. If anyone here has some concrete ideas to put out or ideas for what we could do as a community, please speak up.
That is a question that I have posed to the board, in fact, just 2 days ago. And I certainly opened that question to the community, but I was just looking for feedback from a few people to begin with. But what is it that we can do? What issues are we seeing in our community that we can address, either individually or as a spiritual community? We have an opportunity. In fact, as we move into this new realm of not being brick and mortar based ministry, we have an opportunity to focus our energies not on the maintenance of the building, not on the acquiring of the mortgage, but for activities that are out there. What can we do to help? And on the one hand, it is a community question. It is something that we can contribute to and engage from a community basis. But it also is something that is a very internal thing, and addressing that higher power that is within you. In Unity, we say that we are each the harbor of the Christ. We are the vessel of God in this moment. And so, what is that indwelling Christ light? What is that telling us that how should we be engaged? So
I can choose to act, think, speak, and believe in love rather than fear. That's something personal I can do. I can volunteer to do some phone calling or whatever for the elections, the local ones coming up this month and the national ones. Those are two things I can do without leaving my home, because Bob and I are not going anywhere for a while yet. But those are two things that we can do, and we can speak positively when we talk with friends and neighbors about the fact that we believe in love rather than fear and hate, that we can lead through our actions and our speech.
thank you, Chris.
To Kay's point, I'm really concerned that a lot of this will blow over in terms of like corporations. We had a major webcast this week, and it just kind of almost irritated me. I just felt like it's all the corporate lawyers and everything like that just checking the box to say they're doing something, but really to make it a true movement and a true normal moving forward, we all need to do something to make sure this isn't a flash in the pan, flavor of the month kind of movement.
Well, we each need to be involved in some way. We need to accept the responsibility that we are not sideliners. We are on the field. We are players, and we have each a role to play. What that role is, not for me to dictate, not for anyone to say, you need to do this, but rather it's that indwelling Christ light that can advise us on what is the most appropriate way forward. So, I'd like to share with you a passage that comes from our scripture, Matthew 5:43 to 48. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be children of your Father in heaven. For he makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. For if you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? And if you greet only your brothers and sisters, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. And I said a couple of weeks ago when I used this passage, I said it's not the correct interpretation, translation of the word perfect is actually complete. So be complete, therefore, as your heavenly Father is complete. Complete in your perspective, complete in your understanding of our collective experience. Be complete, therefore, as your heavenly Father is complete.
David, like
Yeah,
you,
Chris.
I've read some of those really mind-blowing accounts. Most of them have been from Black men or from Black mothers of Black children. I had not heard about how Black women are treated. And like you, it just breaks my heart. It's just not right. And it's just inexplicable to me. So I appreciate you sharing those with us.
We have white privilege.
Yeah, we do.
Just from the fact that we are able to that we're able to wear a mask in public. I mean, there have been white men or Black men that have said that they are afraid to wear a mask in public because they will be assumed to be up to no good. And
yeah.
What? Oh my God. Yeah, on the one hand, it feels overwhelming, but on the other hand, we must recognize that we are powerful beings. We are God in flesh. We are spiritual beings having this human experience, and sometimes that human experience can be overwhelming. But we are spiritual beings, first and foremost. So how do we express that Christ light that is within us? How do we express that love of God, which is always offered to us without any exception, without any restriction? But we take that unconditional love that is offered to us and we categorize it. We identify who deserves it and who doesn't deserve it. We identify when it should be offered and when it should not be offered and upon what conditions it should be offered. I'll do this for you if you do that for me. And all of that restriction is stripping the power of that unconditional love that's always available to us to pass on to our neighbors, to our friends. Oh, boy.
We have to remember that those who are perpetrating the violence and the racism and the murder and all the horrendous things, starting at the top of our country, we have to love those people too, because they're actually here to play that part in order to yank the rug out from under us and make us realize, okay, this is here. We've got to deal with it now and do the right thing.
That's insightful. We all have a part to play, and the roles that have been chosen by those who are aggravators in this circumstance. You're absolutely right. If we don't offer unconditional love to those individuals, we are not offering unconditional love, because we have selected and restricted based upon our choosing not to offer love. And at the same time, while offering unconditional love, we do not need to agree with them. We do not need to play we don't need to play their game. We can say, I love you, but I reject what you are doing. I see you as a child of God, but I also see you as a perpetrator of the ego right now. And so we are each called to discern our role in this ongoing. Yeah, it's a conflagration that we are in right now, but we have to, from the standpoint of RAIN, remember that we recognize, we allow, we investigate, and we nurture. From the aspect of RAIN, we recognize the conditions that we're in. We recognize the energy that is going forth. We recognize what part we are playing in it and what effect it is having. And at the same time, we are also need to allow that to be the case for now. Investigate what we can do, how it is affecting us, how it affects our interactions with our loved ones, with the strangers that we encounter. And then we bring that nurturing, unconditional love to ourselves, to heal ourselves, so that we can be more pure in our activity, so that we can be more righteous. That word has a lot of baggage with it, but to be more aware of our role as children of God in this role that we're playing in this human stage. So I'd like to offer first this piece. It turns out it is also from Nemo Patel. Excuse me. And I say that. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Where are we? Oh, sorry. That is it. Okay.
That we were born, Mom hugged us with warmth, and we grew because we knew we had all your support. From the fams to the friends, and love was medicine. Keep giving us the strength to rise when we would sin, and the knowledge that we gained through every single mistake. But you never back down through this. You taught me faith. Every single one of you, through being you, you do find a way to spread love and truth through me and you. And it's because of you I grew, because of you I flew, because of you I made it through without residue. Because of you we all have a home to come to. You're a blessing to us all, so keep just being you. To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, you're my truth. To my people, yeah, you're everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold. Yeah.
First I thank the universe, the infinite, the all. Kaja, Allah, whatever name you call. Then I thank the ancestors, yes, the predecessors, the wisdom and the knowledge that they passed, only bless us. Shot the Marcus Garvey, MLK, Malcolm Gandhi, Bob Marley, Michael Jackson, Tupac, they remind me the power of the pen, the music and the voice. Everything they've done, let me know I have a choice. Now from a people, mom, pop, sister, brother, best friend, acquaintance, lover, co-worker, even if I don't know you, but the good that you do helps me see my way through some space that you share it on the great.
To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah, you're everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold. Yeah. When I close my eyes, I always see learning souls who walk with me. They taught to laugh, they taught to love. You go to hug when push comes to shove. Turn the cheek, forgive, walk away. Tomorrow is another day. Life is short, helping hands to say, I'm holier than the ones who. To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah, everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold. To my people, yeah, you're my soul, you're my roots, you're my family, my life, and my truth. To my people, yeah, everybody, every being, every life, every moment, everything. To my people, yeah, you're my God, you're my soul, you're the one that pushes me to help me grow. To my people, yeah, I bow down to your heart of gold. To my people.
Whoops.
You're muted, David.
Yeah, my dashboard here is windows all over, sound coming from extraneous windows. Okay, so we're back. What I'd like to do is to take a few moments. This will not be as long as our normal Zoom meditation, but I'd like to take a few moments and just settle into this question of who are we and what part do we play. So I'm going to mute everyone, and I ask Doug to unmute himself as he joins us in this time of meditation. Recognizing that, yes, there is a lot to be done. Recognizing that there are many forces at play that would have their way with our society, one way or another. We are part of that. We are players in that. We are looking to have our society rise up to be something greater. And there are others that would prefer a different outcome. What is our role? What can we do to achieve that which we would like to see achieved? It all starts with that cascade of thoughts. It all begins with that seed. It all is hinging on that first germinal thought. And of course, that doesn't arise out of nothingness. It arises from the thought before. It arises from the conditions that we observe. It arises from thoughts, from words that have been expressed. But that first thought, that first responsive thought, takes us along a cascade that will lead us into a greater realization, or it will lead us into a fractured experience of me first, me too. Grab for all that I can get before someone else steals it from me. So if we recognize that that first germinal thought following a stimulus is truly in our control, we rest in that realization. We rest in that power of that first germinal thought. And we acknowledge that as our cascade progresses, we may find that, oops, this is not where I want to be. At that point, we have the opportunity for another germinal thought. That seed that we plant in our consciousness. Where are we going from here? Is this cascade of thought leading me to a realization of a greater feeling of connection among all of our community? Is this cascade going to lead me into a realization that I have a part to play in relieving the pain and angst? Is this cascade of thought leading me to activity that is going to allow our society to rise up to a higher order, to a realization of the equality of everyone, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what color their skin, regardless of whether they are here as documented or undocumented? We are each members of families. We are each vessels of God. We are each opportunity to express the Christ light that is present in all of us, regardless of that name, that is applied, whether it's the Atman or the Buddha nature or it's the Great Spirit that is walking among us, regardless of the labels that we apply to this concept, that we are each truly the expression of the divine by whatever label you apply to it. We are each to be lauded for what we can be, instead of persecuted for the decisions and mistakes that we have made. We are each a vessel of the Christ. Feel that. Rest in that idea. I am the vessel of the Christ. Repeat that to yourself. I am the vessel of the Christ. I am the tongue, the hands, the feet of God in this moment. I am the powerful being imbued with spiritual powers, to make the choices that will lead me into this realization of heaven, this realization of God presence, this realization of my role as members of this society. I am the spiritual being in this moment. And as we look around at those that are in our presence, we see the spiritual being here and the spiritual being there and the spiritual being there, and everyone in our presence being the spiritual being, being the harbors of the Christ, being the words, the actions of God in this moment. And our choice of the germinal thought in responding to a stimulus that is before us is where our power lies. Feel that. Realize that. Practice that. Breathing in and breathing out. We come back into this time and space. And as we come back into this time and space, we let this idea settle in to the very core of our being. The very foundation of our consciousness is that we are the light of God here and now. And for this we give thanks. And for those of you who would like to make a contribution to our ministry, to the building and expansion of our ministry, both in our activities in the community as well as our presence on the internet, holding our contributions in mind, if not in hand, let us repeat. Together, please. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. And while this link is not up in the chat box, if you go to tinyurl.com/, www.lwu donate. You will be taken to our online donation page. And next week I'll remember to put that link in the chat box. So, Maestro, if you would, we'll go ahead and sing this together. It'll be a cacophony, but that's okay. God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Wee. How are you doing?
There.
How are you doing?
We're good.
Doing better? All right.
I'm going to blow out our candle.
Okay.
We are using the computer and it sits differently. I need a taller candle. So, as we prepare to release our circle and extinguish this flame, we honor the divine light it represents, and we carry that light within us into the world, to protect us, to illuminate us, and to guide our actions.